here. We out here on this. Y'all, we out here on some nut shit. Y'all already know what it is. Y'all already know what it is. Y'all already know what it is.
Wait, time out. I don't have a good song on. I don't even have a song on.
Also, I meant to talk about this before. I mean, I guess as you guys are hearing that, it's going to be before me actually jumping into the episode, but I'm actually technically recording this afterwards because I forgot to put it in at the beginning, but whatever. I think it was last night, Meg Thee Stallion went on her Instagram Live, or maybe I think it was last night, she went on her Instagram Live, and basically just blew up Tory Lanez' whole spot. Well, I shouldn't phrase it like that, because that sounds like I'm defending Tory Lanez for doing this bullshit, but she basically went on IG Live. I'm not sure if you guys remember me talking about, a few weeks ago, I forget when I mentioned on the podcast, or if you guys know it from just being on social media or whatever, but I was, Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez were in mainstream media or mainstream news, like a month or so ago because, you know, they were both arrested, or Tory was at least arrested, and people were speculating, and Megan Thee Stallion was injured, and people were saying that, you know, Megan Thee Stallion was shot by Tory Lanez, right? People were speculating that because neither Megan Thee Stallion nor Tory nor either their parties really confirmed what happened. But last night I woke up to Megan Thee Stallion trending or Tory Lanez trending because she went on live and said, hey, yeah, she called him out by name. She said, Tory Lanez shot me. She was like talking to Tory. She phrased it, I shouldn't be laughing, but she was talking to Tory she was talking on her live as if she was talking to Tory. She's like, yeah, Tory, yeah, you shot me twice. Jesus. That's fucked. Listen, I know y'all know that I know that I don't want to be the guy that brings Chris Brown into these kinds of conversations, but I feel the need to just because I know it's going to happen anyway. That's going to be the next stop on the train of thought for some of y'all listening to this. But like, Jesus Christ, you don't just shoot an unarmed woman. You just don't do that. This is why. Okay, listen. At this point, I don't think you should give people, guys under 5'5" guns. Like, listen. There's too much anger and pent up aggression in such a small container. And if you know the smallest bit about chemistry, you know, if there's a lot of pressure in a very small container. If you give it, you know, like a tiny bit of opening, it's gonna all come out at once. It's all gonna kind of blow out really fast, and the impact's gonna be pretty crazy. So you don't want to. This is craziness. I will say that I did when I saw the news as I was getting coffee this morning, I deleted all the Tory Lanez shit off my phone because I'm like, I'm not listening to that shit. Like, I can't. Bro, you don't shoot an unarmed woman for no fucking reason. And even for a like, I don't even know, like, the only single reason that you would ever shoot an unarmed person or an unarmed woman or anyone is if you genuinely fear for your life and you're you know, like, performing self-defense. But listen, Tory Lanez, I know you're short and I know Meg is fucking tall as hell. But there is no way that you ever felt fearful of your life in this scenario to the point where you felt the need to shoot her in both of her feet. Man. Come on, that's some bitch shit. That is some truly bitch ass shit right there. And I as a consumer will not be tolerating or I shouldn't say be tolerating. Well, I don't tolerate, but I will not be contributing more to his musical career because of this. Again, I'm taking Megan at her word, as you should take any abuse survivor at their word, unless, you know, directly proven otherwise. But at this point, I'm taking Meg Thee Stallion at her word that he, in fact, did this fucked up, crazy thing. So, you know, just wanted to, if you guys aren't privy to that news, just wanted to give you that news. Be responsible with the platform. No matter how small this platform is at this point, felt like the need to, you know, I did talk about this, and I guess this is news I feel like I should just mention, you know, Tory Lanez is fucked up for doing this kind of shit. Don't listen to Tory Lanez music. I'm gonna miss the Chicks. I'm gonna miss some of the Chicks tape songs, but whatever, man. Alright, and that being said, I will send you back to your regularly scheduled program, so let's get into it. Alright, cue the fucking air horns, grab your fucking drink, put the shutter shades on, it's time for a Kanye episode. I'm sure I don't need to introduce Kanye West or my admiration for his music today, so we can just kind of jump straight into this week's episode. Before I start, I want to kind of apologize for delaying the release of this episode, but yesterday I was just not feeling it, and, you know, I figured I might as well just give you guys a 100% podcast episode and just jump straight into the weekend from there. So, here we are. Alright, so this week I wanted to talk about Kanye's most underrated songs. I think that this is a pretty fun thing to talk about, and that's a pretty good thing to talk about because, you know, anyone who follows Kanye's music or just kind of follows, like, hip-hop in general, you know, talking about Kanye's best songs, his best albums, all that stuff that's essentially all that people talk about. And it's, you know, that conversation is great, and I'll get to that conversation eventually. But I feel like not a lot of people talk about the songs of his that tend to, like, fly underneath the radar on his albums, so I figured it'd be kind of fun to talk about that today. For the sake of not wanting to blabber on for 3 hours, I will only be talking about his 9 solo studio albums, so sorry to all my Watch the Throne, KSG, and Cruel Summer fans, but I figured that I just stick to the quote-unquote canon projects. And when I say underrated, I don't necessarily mean the least popular songs on the albums, but I'm more referring to the songs that don't get as much attention or acclaim as I think they should. And of course, you know, this is all my opinion. I'm really just kind of doing this, or let me say that I should, let me just say that my choices for this episode that I picked here are really based on my opinion of the quality of a song compared to, or the quality of the song compared to what I view the general public's, or what I've seen the general public's opinion on the song to be. So, I mean, it'll become more apparent as I start talking through the albums, but, you know, each song will only be compared to the other songs from the same album in order to kind of establish somewhat of a decent sense of scaling. I mean, otherwise, like, you know, I mean, this list would be half Yeezus songs if it were not set up that way. So I figured the easiest way to do that is to just kind of compare songs within the albums and then to talk about it on an album-to-album basis. And I'll also be listing them chronologically in terms of album release. So, again, just something to keep this more organized so you guys can follow easily. And without further ado, let's go. Also, actually, a quick disclaimer. I mentioned this on Twitter, but I was drinking as I was writing this script. So, I was drinking while I was writing the script, and then I didn't finish it that same day. So, there's like this weird, like, build in, like, in energy in this episode, and then they'll just, like, kind of start, the energy will drop off by the end, kind of. So, if that, you know, as I'm talking, if you're wondering why I just get so heated in the middle of this, or I get so passionate in the middle of this, that's kind of why. But anyway, let's go. So starting out with the College Dropout, the song that I picked as his most underrated from the project is called 2 Words, featuring Mos Def, Freeway, and the Boys Choir of Harlem. So seeing as though this song is immediately followed by one of the most integral songs to the greater, like, lore of Kanye West, being Through the Wire, it's pretty easy to understand why this song is so easily forgotten 16 years later, especially in terms of the entire, you know, like, pulling out classic Kanye songs. It's pretty easy to see why this gets overlooked. But to me, this song actually has a lot of elements in it that will be found in his later works. In other words, you know, parts of the song that, you know, to now people would say, this is what makes Kanye Kanye, including the sped up chipmunk samples. And if you don't know what I mean by chipmunk, it's just kind of like, you know, it's whatever sample they use, and it's from my from what I know, he actually started / highly popularized this form of sampling, where you just take whatever song you're sampling, speed it up, pitch it super high, and then just like loop it to create the sample that you want. That's very pertinent in this song. He has a very hollow tone in his delivery. Honestly, I can't remember, as I was listening to it, the tone of it sounds like another song. I couldn't think of it then, I still can't think of it, but as you listen to the song, you'll know what I'm talking about. And then, very early use of the choir, and, intricate instrumental as per usual, all those kinds of things, all the things that make Kanye, they're very much available on this song. All this is done, in my opinion, pretty immaculately, especially for being this early in his mainstream musical career. Obviously, he was a producer for years before this album came out, but before at the time where Kanye was just at the beginning of being Kanye, the Kanye that he is now, it's pretty interesting to see how well he can kind of piece together all these parts of his artistry into one song. I think it's really cool to listen to, especially in hindsight. In the intro and the final section of the song, there's also this like hurried and frantic violin playing in the background, which I love, and it makes you think that there's something sinister about to happen. I think that's like a cool thing that you can, another song that I can kind of, uses a similar kind of tone or similar kind of, like use of instrument is like Who That Boy from Tyler, the Creator's Flower Boy, which I talked about last week. Just kind of uses an instrument to kind of make you feel like something's creeping up on you, or like you're in a horror movie, something like that. But I think it sounds really cool, especially like since it's it's not a pretty song, but it's a nicer song to listen to. So having a violin put in this song to sound like that, I think it's a cool like opposite to the song. I also really enjoy everyone's verses on this song. I'm not too familiar with Freeway, and I don't listen to most Def music. I'm not even sure how much music he puts out, recently. But and then the Boys Choir of Harlem is literally just the Boys Choir of Harlem. So I'm not listening to that to any music from them. But so let's just say that if this is my one and only example of all three of these acts, or quote-unquote artists, it's a pretty good example of them, honestly. They all do, all their sections, all their contributions are really great. And Kanye's verse is also really, really, really good. And, listening back to, like, his earlier albums, it really makes, especially on this song, it really makes me miss when Kanye used to brag about his own accomplishments and his life. And, hearing him do this for essentially a whole verse, especially, again, like I said, this early in his career, is really fun to listen to. And, definitely in retrospect, it's fun to listen to. Because it's like, he was this, like, full of himself off his first actual album. It's funny. I think it's funny, and I think it fits, into, like, the Kanye lore as it exists today. This song, it's funny because, in my opinion, this song would shine on a worse album, like a worse album overall. But it's hard to compete with the likes of All Falls Down, We Don't Care, Jesus Walks, and Through the Wire, some of which are, staple Kanye songs. Jesus Walks being one of the most important songs that Kanye ever made, and then, like I said, Through the Wire being one of the most integral parts of his lore or his story. Like I said, it has. And that's kind of like the theme that I want to address with these songs, is that these songs are good and that they would be like some of the best songs on like a lot of other albums by a lot of other artists. But just compared to just some of the massive like heavy hitter singles that are on some of Kanye's albums, these underrated songs that I'm calling them just kind of fall by the wayside and get forgotten about. And the runner-up that I had for the most underrated song on College Dropout is called Last Call, and this is the outro. This is the last song on the album. And if you want to learn more about Kanye's introduction into like the mainstream rap world, or into like, I guess, kind of the rap world in general, into like how he started producing for people like Jay-Z, Definitely check this song out. It's it's 12 minutes long, but it's, I think like the first like 3 minutes or so are like the actual song, like him actually like rapping and all that stuff. And then the last 9 minutes, or the other, I should say the other 9 minutes, are him kind of talking to you as if you're having a conversation over the same instrumental that's playing. So it's not like he's just like talking with no background music. He's just kind of like lecturing you. Like it actually like, it's weird how it's hard to describe. And I think it's a really cool outro, because like I said, it's a really cool, like, especially on your first album, it's really cool to be like, this is how I started. This is how I got to the point to where I am now. This is how I got the acclaim that I have now. It's cool. I think it's really cool. And, if it weren't so damn long, if it existed purely as a song, I would probably have it as my most underrated on here, because it sounds great, and it has one of my favorite Kanye lyrics in it. So, but yeah, definitely go check that out, both those songs, and check out the College Dropout if you haven't already. Next album is Late Registration, and the song that I picked is called Addiction. Everything about this song is so understated that it really just like completely flies under the radar. Even the sample is very, I don't want to say un-Kanye because he produced it, but it's not very changed. It's very unchanged from the original, both in terms of pitch and tempo, compared to the sample that I talked about on 2 Words, where it's very like completely differently pitched, sped up like hell. This is very unchanged, or at least it sounds very unchanged from the original source of the sample. In the second half of the song, Kanye is even singing his own background vocals, which is equal parts hilarious and kind of endearing in a way. Kanye does not have the greatest voice in the world. Definitely does not have the greatest singing voice in the world, especially pre auto-tune era, like pre 808s, which we'll talk about. His singing voice, and even post auto-tune, like he does not have the best singing voice in the world. But I think on this song, it sounds, he does in a way where it actually sounds kind of nice, even though it's not the best of the best by any means. It sounds cool. But off rip on this song, the instrumental got me hooked right away. There's a repeated snare that sounds like it's circling around my head, and like a sort of chime loop that sounds like it's adopted straight from like a Spanish guitar. I like to say Spanish guitar. I don't actually fully know what I mean when I say that, but when I hear a particular instrumental, it's just like it may or may not sound anything like a Spanish guitar, but to me that's just what I guess, and I imagine I've heard a Spanish guitar to sound like. And this is definitely not the first time I've used the term Spanish guitar to describe an instrumental, but that's what it sounds like to me, excuse me. If I'm wrong, whatever. And as with a lot of other classic Kanye songs, this song is filled to the brim with, let me rephrase that. I shouldn't say filled to the brim. The entire song is based around, the concepts of sex, drugs, and alcohol, his addictions at the time, hence the title of the song being Addiction. And what's different about this song compared to his later songs that have the same or similar content is that this song kind of approaches these topics in a way that kind of makes you feel sorry for him that he has these addictions, or that he's addicted to these things, which, again, in hindsight, it's nice to listen to. It's kind of put in a more, innocent way, I guess, if that's, if you want to call it that. I'm not sure if innocent is really the right word for that, but whatever. And this whole album, I love Late Registration. I switch my favorite Kanye albums every few weeks, honestly, but this album as in general is more, it all sounds good. It all sounds prettier. It's jazz. This whole album is based around the sound of jazz music, so it all sounds like everything sounds really good. But none of the other songs on this album sound innocent as much as this one, or like low key as much as this one does. Heard Him Say could kind of be up there, but excluding 808s, this is one of the rare times that we actually get a song like this from Kanye, and you know, it makes to me it makes for a really good album cut. And when I say, if you guys aren't familiar with the term album cut, or like a deep cut, excuse me, when I say deep cut or an album cut, it really just means a song that doesn't get like radio play. It isn't a single. It isn't like one of the most played songs on the album, but it, like, when you listen to it, it's still one of the better songs on the album, but you just kind of have to look for it. It won't just like jump out at you if you're looking at the track list or if you're trying to remember the album just off memory. That's what I mean. And the runner-up for, or technically the runners-up for this album, for the most underrated song on this album, is Wake Up Mr. West / Heard Him Say. Wake Up Mr. West, God, excuse me, is the intro to the album, and it's a skit, and then Heard Him Say is the second song, which, you know, comes off that intro. And I combine these two since Wake Up Mr. West, again, leads directly into Heard Him Say. So much so that, like, you know, it's like he made the entirety of the two songs together and then just like cut. Literally just went into I don't think Fruity Loops, I don't know what program he used for it or what, you know, what he used to make these songs at the time, but whatever production environment he used, it literally just sounds like he just chopped it, like just split the song in two and then just made one Wake Up Mr. West and then made the other one Heard Him Say. But you know, I love Heard Him Say. I'm not sure if Adam Levine, or I'm not sure if the Adam Levine feature held as much weight back then. I guess, when did this album come out? 2007? Is that right? Oh god, I messed up my dates. But whenever this I'm messing up my dates so bad, but whenever this album came out, I'm not sure if Adam Levine of, you know, Maroon 5, I was 1 year off, excuse me, or 2 years off, 2005, my god. I'm not sure if Adam Levine held that much weight, like industry weight back then, as a individual singer, even away from Maroon 5, or even including Maroon 5, but, you know, I think it's worthy of the acknowledgement. I like it a lot. I'm pretty sure they also wrote and I think recorded this entire, I'm not sure about the recording part, but I know they wrote the entirety of the song on a flight that they shared together, which I think is pretty cool in terms of the lore, but whatever. Leaving Late Registration, we have the last of the college series being Graduation, and I've been pretty vocal about this song in the past. If you've talked to me, if you heard me talk about Kanye, I've been very vocal about this song because I think this is one of his, you know, okay, let me introduce it. This song is called I Wonder, or I Wonder. I don't know why I phrased it like that the first time, but not only is this one of my favorite Kanye songs, like, throughout his entire discography, but this honestly, in my opinion, might be his most underrated song in his entire discography, comparatively, of course, like compared to the other songs on the album. I attribute this mostly to my opinion that Graduation is like the most replayable album in his in his catalog. I mean, you know, like, this song has to go up against like absolute party classics like Stronger, Can't Tell Me Nothing, Flashing Lights. I mean, a whole bunch of them. I mean, you can list off most of the track list, and most of those songs still ring off today. You know, it's hard to be a really replayable song on an album that is where the other replayable songs are some of the biggest songs that he has. So, you know, I Wonder is definitely one of the best songs to just completely fly underneath the radar. But this song literally has everything I need from a Kanye West song. It has a pretty intro instrumental in the form of these piano keys, and an endearing sample, a simple drum pattern over like some really, really, really beautiful rising synths, easily quotable lyrics. You know, a little bit of I have it as like light introspection, if you will, just everything. I love this song. I love this song so much. It sounds so triumphant, like, it's fantastic. It sounds like you finally made it to the top of the mountain and you're just like looking over the landscape. This is the song that's playing in your head, even though the lyrics might not necessarily replicate that, and you could probably play another song to like get a similar feeling. But that's just what it sounds like to me as I listen to it. The song is incredibly simple and every aspect, really, even in Kanye's delivery, which some could knock, but I mean, I think that just makes it perfect. Everything is just simple. It's just the drum pattern is easy as shit. Like, I won't embarrass myself and do it here, but it's like, it's simple shit. Everything about the song is simple, but it's what makes it great. It's easy to, you turn this shit on, you can hear this song play 5 times, and you know pretty much everything about it. You know every in and out about it, and I think that makes it great. It makes it, and again, I think it makes it really easy to, I think that simplicity makes it really easy to focus on the little things that make the song great. And yeah, I mean, it's just a song, so I can't talk in, like, I can't talk your ear off about it, but I cannot express how underrated I think this song is. Throughout this entire list, with the, I guess, the exclusion of Yeezus as a whole and the songs on that I'll talk about, I think this is the most underrated song on this list by far. By far. But yeah, seriously, if you haven't listened to this song, just go out and listen to it, and listen to this whole album if you haven't listened to it already somehow. Okay, so this album actually had 2 runners up for it. The first one being called The Glory, and then the second one being called Good Morning. Good Morning is one of my favorite Kanye intros throughout all of his albums, and it can easily hang with the likes of, you know, his more popular intros being, you know, Ultralight Beam, Dark Fantasy, you know, his better intros. Kanye has insanely good intros. But I think Good Morning kind of, as an individual song and as an intro, kind of flies underneath the radar, and definitely deserves more attention. I love that shit. I just find myself in random times just, like, I guess, humming to myself the beat to this song. It's just, like, ingrained in my memory, the amount of times I've heard this song. But, you know, it can match some of the more recognized intros in his catalog in terms of quality easily. The Glory, on the other hand, is a song where Kanye lets the sample have almost equal footing to the lyrics, which is, you know, pretty Kanye of him. But, I mean, speaking of the lyrics, there are quotables everywhere on this song. I mean, you know, should I talk my shit again, even if I don't hit again? Dog, are you fucking kidding? I will scream that shit out every time I hear it. I love that. And I mean, like, the hood love to listen to Jeezy and Weezy, and oh yeah, Yeezy. And my absolute favorite, the Go Yard so hard, man, I'm Hugo's boss. That bar is so hard. I can't rap it like he can, but that shit is so hard. Every time I hear it, I just like, damn man. You know, he rap. You know, that's that's your man. That's my man's right there. But you know, there's some absolute classic lyrics in that song, and that it flies underneath the radar. They all do, but you know, has some monsters in that album that they have to fight against. So you can barely knock them for that. Leaving the college series, we are moving on to 808s and Heartbreak. And the song that I picked for the most underrated is Streetlights. And this was kind of the hardest song for me to pick, since I'm not a big fan of this album personally. Like, you know, so I can't say I'm too in tune with the public's opinions on each song on this album, because I don't really care about a lot of the songs on this album for the most part. Not that they're bad, because they're not bad. It's just like, I don't really care to hear auto-tuned Kanye sing for an entire album. I'm cool on that, in that department, but you know, but I say that to say that, you know, this may, after another person could easily debate that this is not his most underrated song on this album, or that it is, whatever. But you know, just wanted to put that ahead of my explanation. That being said, however, Streetlights is a song that I like quite a bit, and that, from what I know, has not held its own in the years since its release, compared to, you know, like the singles on the album being like, you know, Heartless, Paranoid, Love Lockdown, and even like even the intro, which I'm forgetting the name of, but or Say You Will is the intro, which kind of had a resurgence. He like reposted it on like SoundCloud like maybe 5 years ago or a few years ago for some reason, and it got like a resurgence of popularity, but whatever. I digress. Again, the song isn't too complex in any aspect. It does, however, feature, you know, boom, choir again, choir, or I shouldn't say an actual choir, but choir-like vocals layered on top of singing, on top of Kanye singing, that add a lot to the song for me that a lot of the songs on here didn't have. Again, Kanye singing is nothing to really applaud him for, and if considering that's essentially the basis of this album, at least like in the style that it's delivered to you, you know, it to me, I'm not really a big fan of it, so I need something more to be on top of it. And you know, you can never dislike a Kanye choir. You can never do it. So this sounds really great in that aspect. I also really appreciate how this is one of the few songs on this album that doesn't really heavily use the auto-tune. Not that I'm a big auto-tune like hater, or I don't want to say disprove is not the right word, but you know, I'm not going to be hating on anybody that uses auto-tune. It's just how its music is made now. And I mean, especially when you come to get to people like Travis Scott, like auto-tune is the game and it's what makes him great. So, but it's nice that in an album that is focused very heavily around auto-tune, that I get a break from it in the form of this song. So, you know, I'll finish off by saying I don't have a lot to say about the song, but from my point of view, I at least think that it deserves more recognition at this point in his career. And for runner-up, I don't have any. I don't have one. Sorry. And moving on to leaving 808s and Heartbreak, and moving on to his magnum opus, or his largely considered to be magnum opus, we have My Beautiful Dark Twisted... I don't know how the hell it autocorrected the family in here, but My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. And the song that I have as his most underrated is So Appalled. I actually had Hell of a Life originally as I was typing this, or as I was thinking of this list. I originally had Hell of a Life on here, but as I was listening through Hell of a Life and then So Appalled, I was like, actually it's definitely So Appalled. And then we'll talk about Hell of a Life afterwards, but you know, let's just start off with So Appalled. So technically, I personally believe that, like I said, that a different song, that Hell of a Life is more underrated than So Appalled, you know, just objectively. Or I shouldn't say objectively, because again, it's my personal opinion, but you know what I mean. But that's more of like a head-to-head comparison. So like I think Hell of a Life compared to So Appalled is more underrated, but, and I'll get into that later. But for now, but I mean, when you look at the song in totality, So Appalled, oh my god, like how is this song just not talked about more? I mean, like, look at this fucking lineup. Jay-Z, Pusha T, Sci-Hi the Prince, Swizz Beatz, RZA, and then of course Kanye. What a, like, this lineup is insane. Like, I mean, it's insane. I mean, yeah, okay. The mixing of it is a little bit need a little bit more work. I wish this album came out in the streaming era where he could just fix it like he did to a lot of songs on TLOP, but whatever. It is what it is. The mixing is a little bit it's a little bit shoddy, but you know, whatever. And I really don't care that the instrumental is repetitive, because I don't care. The instrumental alone sounds like a maniac being restrained by his arms and legs and just screaming out for help every second or so. That's what this instrumental song is like to me. And it sounds insane, and it sounds weird, and it sounds it's mixed kind of poorly in spots, but fuck it, I don't care. It's way better than a lot of other Posse cuts, so fuck y'all. And every single person on this song pops off, in my opinion. And it never fucking ends. Oh my god. It's 6 minutes and 37 seconds of your ears just getting absolutely assaulted by a combination of bars and just like the screaming instrumental. And again, like, I don't mind this. Listen, you guys have heard me talk about how I hate long albums and how I hate, you know, super long songs. But I only hate them if you're not changing anything in the duration of your super long album or super long song. But like, you know, 6 minutes and 30 seconds, there are, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 rappers on here. You know, you give each one of them a verse, and then you give one of them the chorus. Like, it's gonna fill in the 6.5 minutes with no problem. You're not even gonna realize you're running for that long until it's done, but whatever. You know. And the reason why I picked this one over Hell of a Life is because it has the unfortunate circumstance of being sandwiched between probably the strongest 5-song streak in all of hip hop, being All of the Lights, Monster, So Appalled in the middle, Devil in a New Dress, and then Runaway. You can even throw in Power in there if you ignore the All of the Lights interlude, or if you want to count the interlude as part of All of the Lights. So it's in the middle of one of the strongest 6-song, probably the strongest 6-song run in an album in hip hop, period. And even the 5-song is probably the strongest 5-song run. It's just like, unfortunately, just sandwiched in between like some of the best songs that have been introduced to the hip hop game ever. So it's just kind of like, you know, it's fantastic, but it's surrounded by gods, man. It's surrounded by god tier songs. I also do admit that this song like pales and another reason why it's underrated is because it pales in comparison to Monster before it, which is another posse cut in a way. But honestly, if Nicki Minaj didn't just decide to blow hit her entire skill cap on her Monster verse, this song might be better. I mean, you know, it might be. And maybe not. That monster instrumental is absolutely insane. It's insane. That song is insane. I mean, everyone else did pretty well too, but like Nicki Minaj carries that entire song. So imagine a world where she didn't just blow all of her fucking resources on her introduction verse and saved her talent for the rest of her career. Oh god, imagine a world that would be. But yeah, for the runners up, for this album, I have Hell of a Life, and then I have Devil in a New Dress. Sorry. Hell of a Life is the definition of Kanye grime. A homie said, make a nun come, make her cremate. I love that part. Who says shit like that? Who would say shit like that and just like, nobody bats an eye? I'd be like, you know, that's just Kanye being Kanye. Like, that's a crazy ass bar. That's a crazy bar. A bar so crazy that Kanye now would just cringe and like crawl into his hole in Wyoming if someone put that shit on at his house. But you know, I love this song. I love Hell of a Life so much because it is the complete, like I said, it's the complete opposite of of the Jesus heavy music that he makes now. It is the complete opposite. It is so hilarious. It is so hilarious, his arc. Because it's like he's making shit like Hell of a Life, where the entire song is based on him marrying a porn star. And then, you know, he's rapping about water or whatever, you know, Jesus and all that shit, whatever. It's just funny. It's a funny little dichotomy of Kanye, if you will, of his artistry. And it just makes me happy to listen to it now. And okay. And listen. I'm putting it on record. I've tweeted it before. I've said it multiple times. I'll scream it from the rooftops. But I'm putting it on the record here, officially. Devil in a New Dress is better than Runaway. It is. Fight me. That's all I'm going to say on that for now. Because I'll talk about that conversation or that argument on a whole different episode that I'll do in the future. I'll save that because otherwise this episode might honestly be 2 hours. If I just list off all the reasons why it's better, but again, I'll save that. But for now, Devil in a New Dress is better than Runaway. It's just underrated. I think Devil in a New Dress comparatively is just underrated, but whatever. No, also I want to say that for some of y'all who are more familiar with this album and are asking where Blame Game is, I hate that song. I shouldn't say I hate that song. I just never listen to that song. I don't like that song. I don't hate it. I just don't like listening to it at all. Like listen, I know y'all love that Chris Rock skit at the end. I know you guys like it. It's cool. It's cool. And it's funny. It's super fucking funny. But the song is damn near 8 minutes with it, and I'm skipping that shit every single time it comes on. So if I'm skipping like a good section of the song, and you know, that's a part of the song that, you know, a lot of people hold in high regard and think, you know, this adds to the song as a whole. If I'm skipping that shit every time, nah, that takes it down a couple notches, a bunch of notches, honestly. But whatever. And moving on from My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, we're moving on into my favorite album, Yeezus. And for the most underrated song on this album, I have every song. Just kidding. It's Send It Up. Just kidding. But seriously though, this entire album is I'll get on my Yeezus soapbox here for the umpteenth time today. But seriously, this entire album is criminally underrated. Criminally underrated. I could have put like 4 different songs on here. And honestly, I'm still not even super confident in this pick. Because this entire album, like I said, like 4 of the songs on here are absurdly underrated. And, you know, I'm just going with Send It Up because I kind of finalized it as it. I'll mention the other 3 that I think are just as, if not just slightly more underrated than Send It Up, but, you know, I'll talk about those later. I mean, I could have put I miss Kanye saying he was a god. You know, saying he was God or literally God, or having the song list saying that it features God. I miss that shit. I miss that shit a lot. But, you know, those days are over. I just gotta hold that. Anyways, Send It Up. This song is filled with quotable lyrics. The whole can you get my friend to the club scheme, like rhyme scheme, or I guess concept scheme, is hilarious, and it's catchy as hell, and I just love rapping it whenever this song comes on. This also birthed the Yeezus Just Rose Again little tagline, which I reluctantly use, and I definitely overuse whenever Kanye, every single time Kanye drops an album release date that he won't ever honor, but I will tweet it every single time. That's the tagline. That's the official new Kanye album tagline. Comes from this song. And with those like loud ass horns at the start of the song and, you know, throughout the whole song, you're either gonna skip this motherfucker or let it ride, and it's fine. It's perfectly fine if you skip it, because, you know, at this point in my life, and at this point in my Kanye fan, you know, timeline, I'm perfectly okay with people not liking this shit, but just give it a chance. It's incredible. And I mean, yeah, I know. Listen, I know Blood on the Leaves is an incredible piece of music. I know New Slaves' second verse is Kanye's second. I know the second verse of New Slaves is Kanye's favorite verse ever, and he thinks it's the greatest verse in rap ever. Whatever, I don't care. And I also don't care that Bound 2 is an iconic outro. This song is crazy. A lot of these songs are crazy. Okay, and like I said, I'm about to hit you with the runners up, and like I said, any of these songs could be the most underrated song on this album. I know I didn't talk a lot about the actual intricacies of this song, but again, I'm sorry. When I was I was not at my best per se as I was writing this one, but listen, just these songs are criminally underrated. Just check them out. And then the runners up, I have I Am a God, which is Kanye at definitely his most egotistical. And I'll also Hurry Up with My Damn Croissants is one of the funniest lines to ever be uttered in any rap song, period. I'm In It, which is Kanye at his most raunchy, or, you know, partially at his most raunchy. You know, put my fist in her like the civil rights sign, and Eating Asian Pussy, All I Need Was Sweet and Sour Sauce are iconic, just crazy fucking absurd ass Kanye lines. And I would really condemn any other artist to even attempt rapping that shit with the kind of energy that he does. No other artist could really do it in that way. And Guilt Trip, which is pretty close, which could also be considered to be one of the most underrated songs in this album. I mean, the instrumental and the vocal effects will send you to another dimension on the song. I love this shit. And this singing's crazy. It's not the best singing in the world, but it just sounds crazy. But any of those songs and this entire album as a whole is underrated. But, you know, I'll say that any day of the week, not just today. And we're gonna leave that album, because I'll talk about that album for hours if you let me. And we'll move on to The Life of Pablo, which I'll refer to as TLOP, or I have referred to as TLOP. And the song I have as the most underrated is Saint Pablo. And what I will say before I get into the analysis is that it's funny now that The Life of Pablo isn't as new anymore, and it's kind of like the new album sheen has worn off it, and a lot of people are giving it the respect that it deserves, me included. It's funny that same Pablo is hitting, some of the top 50, top 100 Kanye song lists that I see online. This song is up insanely high. Like, I've seen this. It's funny. I've seen a couple people put this as their, their number one Kanye song. It's like this in fucking Ghost Town. Jesus, why do people like Ghost Town so much? Whatever, I'll save that. But I want to say that to say that I acknowledge that a lot of people do regard this song very highly, but in terms of how the album was introduced and given to the public initially, and kind of even still at this point, I still think that this song kind of gets forgotten about in a lot of ways. So even though, in some isolated instances, people do regard this song very highly, I still think it deserves more attention. So, yeah. I remember listening to this album during Kanye's Yeezy Season 3 fashion show at Madison Square Garden in February 2016, and then officially listening to it on the first time on Tidal. Ugh, fucking Tidal. The minute it was released on February 14th, 2016. And the minute. I remember exactly when it came out at midnight. I think he did. I don't know if y'all remember. He was on Fallon. Was it Fallon? He was on a late night show. I'm pretty sure it was Fallon, where he performed Ultralight Beam with Chance, and then afterwards he just ran around the stage screaming that it was available. Everyone was like, "Where is it? Where is it?" And then, an hour or so later, it finally got released on Tidal because the service crashed or whatever. I just remember that shit. That's an iconic ass release, in my opinion. But whatever. Let the record show that this was the best part of that Valentine's Day by a mile. By a mile, in hindsight, obviously. And I just think that's a funny thing to mention. But whatever. At the time of release, the album outro was actually Fade, featuring Ty Dolla $ign and Post Malone, which I also love. And at the time, made for a pretty good outro, but it kind of didn't really reflect on the tone of the latter part of the album, or just kind of like the theme of the album as a whole. It was a good outro, but it didn't really fit the narrative of the album as a whole. So, it was way too dance and club focused, or Fade I'm talking about here. It was way too dance and club focused to be placed at the end, in my opinion. But whatever. St. Pablo, on the other hand, was the result of Kanye realizing that TLOP as a concept album, or the concept of TLOP, needed a different outro, and he instead recruited the vocal stylings of Sampha to deliver a haunting, meaningful, and emotional track that actually caps off this album perfectly, in my opinion, in terms of the overall concept of the album. This song, and in terms of just how good the song is, it's a really amazing song to end an album, to end really any album on. Like I said, this song was added to the album after its official release. I can't remember the exact date when it was put on. I think it was released as a single, I think on SoundCloud, first, and then just essentially just stapled to the to the end of that album afterwards. But and I'm to this day I'm very thankful that he gave us a song and that it's an actual official release, because he could have just easily kept this as like an unofficial release or just as a single. But I like that he noticed that this fit perfectly into the album as a whole, so he gave it to us like that. Considering that this album has 20 fucking songs on it, and not that many skits, only maybe like 2 or 3 skits. Yeah, something like that. So, I guess I'll say, just to be safe, out of the 16 actual songs, which is still a lot. Some of which being absolute streaming monsters, such as Ultralight Beam, which is overrated in my opinion. Father Stretch My Hands, Part 1 and 2, Famous, Waves, Wolves, and No Parties in LA. There are a lot of insanely massive singles on there. It's easy to lose this gem in the mess, especially considering, again, like I said, it came after, technically, it was added to the album after its official release. It's easy to forget about it. Honestly, it's probably one of Kanye's most well-rounded songs, and in my opinion, definitely deserves more attention than it gets presently. For the runner-up on this album, I have Freestyle 4, which is one of my personal favorite songs of Kanye's, especially on this album, and is an absolute sleeper banger on this album. You know, if this album is meant to demonstrate the many facets of Kanye's personality, this is the grimy one for sure. It's fantastic. It's really short. It's really oddly put together, and it's really eerie, but it's great. And people, I know for a fact people forget that this song exists. Tyler, the Creator, did a really awesome freestyle over this instrumental. It sounds cool as shit too. Definitely go look that song up. Look up the music video to that Tyler. I guess it's a remix maybe. I don't know what you would consider it, but definitely go look up the Freestyle for Tyler the Creator remix. I think Rocky's in it. I'm pretty sure Rocky's in it. But yeah, go check that out anyway. Going into my least favorite Kanye West album. It's Ye. I'm sorry. I don't like this album, but whatever. The most underrated song I have on here is called No Mistakes. And, you know, this song is pretty hard, kind of similar to 808s. This song is pretty hard for me to choose. Since this album only has 7 songs, and all of them, excluding Ghost Town, are all just kind of regarded as mid in the totality of his catalog. At least from what I've seen. No Mistakes is probably the most forgotten song on here, even though in my opinion and from what I've seen, Ye is just a forgotten album and really should be regarded as a Lost Files kind of album, because that album isn't great, but you know, it's pretty easily forgotten. It's only 2 minutes long. It has no features. It doesn't even benefit from like the lens of being like an intro and outro. I mean, you know, I Thought About Killing You, which is the album intro, is pretty easily forgotten too, but it's the intro. So if you're listening to the song in totality, you're like when you're thinking about, if you were to think about, all right, when you're thinking about the album, you're like, all right, what's the intro? And you're like, it's I Thought About Killing You. You know, it's easy to remember. So in that way, it's not as underrated as No Mistakes, I guess. It's not a single, and it sounds unfinished. This whole album, whatever. A lot of my gripes with this song and with all the songs are just my general gripes for the album, which is it just sounds rushed and it sounds unfinished, but whatever. This song, however, does have a good bit going for it that should be highlighted more. The chorus sounds pretty good and is easily able to be sang out. The instrumental is distorted simply, and the lyrics have a good bit of meaning behind them, which are notable aspects of the song. Again, this isn't the best song in the world, but it should be talked about more when talking about the other songs on this album. I mean, everyone leaves this album talking about Ghost Town, which I personally don't understand the excitement about that song. I mean, it's a great song, but it's like, you know, that song would be forgotten about on any other Kanye album, but whatever. And then for the runner-up on this album, I don't have one because, you know, I'm running out of songs. There are only 7 songs. One of them being No Mistakes, 2 of them being the intro outro, and then one of them being Yikes, the single, and then the other one being Ghost Town, which people love. So I only had 2 songs to choose from, and they're both mid as shit. And then finishing off this episode with the bastard child of Kanye's discography, Jesus King. And the song I have, the most underrated song of this album, in my opinion, is On God. And, you know, obviously at this point in his career, Kanye has given up his focus on rapping, or, you know, traditional rapping, like Barring You Down. And instead is focused on the message of the song and the overall musicality and the production of his songs / albums. So, you know, using that lens, this song is a pretty good example of that, as the lyrics are admittedly very basic, both in terms of content, complexity, or I shouldn't say, but, well, in terms of complexity, content, and delivery. But the production sounds incredible to me. When I was listening to this for the first time, this was my standout song, and again, it's not a single, and it didn't have any features on it like no hands or hands on, like no hands, like hands on, and shit, what's the fucking Kenny G one, and Use This Gospel. So it didn't have like a lot of names behind it to really carry it post release, especially considering not a lot of people like this album or listen to this album after release anyway. So yeah, I love about the song specifically, I really love his approach of essentially adding a different layer. I'm going back to the production because that's what I really like about this song. I love his approach of him essentially adding a layer of the instrumental every few seconds until you get this almost larger than life collection of sounds that create this beautiful mess of a song. Obviously, he's not the first artist or producer to ever add vocals constantly throughout the song as the song continues, but I think it's done insanely well here, and I think once it reaches its peak, the instrumental, I think it sounds insane. And I love it. And again, the song doesn't have a lot going for it, which is at least after the first few listens, a lot of people don't revisit. Like I said, a lot of people don't really revisit this album a lot anyway. So if they're gonna go revisit this album, it's probably not gonna be to hear this song. But I think they should revisit. I think a lot of people should revisit the song from a production standpoint. And not that it adds, a little note that I have is not that it adds that much to the song as a whole, but hearing Pierre Bourne's producer tag at the end of the song, like the Yo Pierre come out here tag at the end of having that be put on to the end of the song is kind of crazy and should be talked about more, especially since Kanye rarely ever keeps his producer tags in his songs. I can't even think of another song where Kanye is a co-producer where he keeps the tag. Not that I don't even think he really, co-produces with producers that have a tag or use a tag predominantly in their songs. But I just think that mere little trivia fact alone should be more talked about, because it's kind of crazy, One of his most highly anticipated albums. Everyone was trying to check in and see what this gospel-like album would sound like, and he not only had a pretty big name co-producer being Pierre Bourne on one of the songs, but he let Pierre put his own tag in there, which is kind of crazy. Overall, I think this is one of the most underrated songs on his most overhated albums, so I doubt anybody will remember this song, in coming years, but, it is what it is. Also, Water is still terrible. It's still a terrible song. Not that has anything to do with what this episode is about, but Water is still a terrible song. Just wanted to put that out there. And as a runner-up, I have Everything We Need, which features Ty Dolla $ign and Ann Clemens. But yeah, that essentially does it for my first Kanye episode. I'll be doing more episodes like this, being more Kanye-centric in the future. But I'm going to keep them pretty spaced out, so y'all don't get sick and tired of me talking about him too quickly. Again, I love Kanye. He's my favorite artist. He's one of my favorite things in music to talk about, and I think his discography has a lot of different conversations intrinsically added to it or with it. So I definitely have a lot of other concepts for episodes planned for the future, but again, like I said, I'll keep them kind of spaced out just to stop them from becoming stale. Again, I apologize for delaying the release of this podcast episode, but I didn't want to half-ass my recording of it because I know y'all deserve better than that, and I didn't want to just drop the standard of the recording just because I wanted to put it out on time. But anyways, I'm not going to go over my, as I usually do with Thursday podcasts, I'm not going to go over what songs I'm looking forward to this weekend because I kind of already listened to them because it's Friday. I already listened to them this morning. And I don't want to kind of prematurely give my opinions on them. So, yeah, definitely check back on Monday if you want to, see what my opinion on the songs that came out. And there were some, I can definitely say now that I know that I've seen what songs came out, nothing crazy, but I'll just leave it at that. So far, I still have one project that I want to listen to, that I'll get to. I'm looking forward to that, but for at this point, nothing insane coming up. But definitely check out because, even if there's nothing insanely good to talk about, I will definitely have jokes for the shitty things to talk about. And yeah, that being said, I have been Nick Hope. This has been the Bittersweet Taste Podcast, and I will talk to you guys again on Monday.